Hi everybody, Jennifer Schaus here. We're coming to you live today from Washington, D.C. as we continue to cover the DFARS, the Defense Federal Acquisition Regulation Supplement, in our webinar series. Our webinars are all complimentary and recorded. You can find or register for them on any Wednesday or Friday at 12 o'clock Eastern. All of the recordings are over on our YouTube channel, along with 750 other government contracting webinars. And if you're looking for the PowerPoints, because many of them have links, active links in them, if you log on to slideshare.net, you can log on over there with your LinkedIn credentials. It's a complimentary site, and you'll find all of the 750 plus corresponding PowerPoints on that site. If you're interested in sponsoring or advertising in our webinar series or putting on your own webinar, drop us an email to the hello@jenniferschaus.com and we will send you our media kit. In the event that you found the DFARS registration link through a friend, or you found it on an external website, you want to register for the full series, if you go over to our website, click on the tab called the DFARS, and you'll notice that on the left-hand side, we actually covered the DFARS back in 2021. So all the historical recordings are there. Keep in mind, they are historical, so some of that information is probably out of date. The FAR and everything else is kind of going through some many changes currently, and just keep that in mind. If you're looking for the recordings from this current series and you want to register for upcoming webinars, on the right-hand side on our website, if you see the YouTube link, obviously we've covered that part, and that'll direct you over to YouTube. If you are interested in registering for something that's coming up, you'll see an attendee link. And what you see here is a screenshot from earlier in the season. So a little bit about us. We do provide consulting services for government contractors focused on the federal sector. Many of our services are listed on our website on the screen here as well, but we do have a primary focus on helping companies get onto the GSA schedule. This is a contract vehicle that is going to be, at least on paper, and it is kind of coming into fruition through an executive order that came out on March 20th through the current administration to make federal procurement a lot easier and more simple. So GSA will soon be the central hub for procurement. If you need help getting onto the GSA schedule, drop us an email, and that's basically what we do. In the event that you are selling to federal contractors, so banks, law firms, insurance companies, accounting companies, payroll, the whole 9 yards, we can help you advertise to federal contractors. We just had an event on Monday this week over at the Kennedy Center with about 360 plus attendees, as well as government and corporate sponsors. But our newsletter reaches over 38,000 subscribers, most of which are federal contractors. It's a free newsletter, and we do have advertising options in there. Okay, now we want to thank our in-kind sponsors, our friends over at govevents.com. That's the premier platform for posting events related to government and government contracting. We also want to thank the Fairfax County Economic Development Authority. They have an online calendar of events and webinars happening in the local area. You can find all of our events and webinars over on the Fairfax County Economic Development website. We also want to thank Tom Johnson and his team at Set Aside Alert. That's the go-to publication for finding opportunities for small women-owned, veteran-owned Hub Zone 8A and other set-aside designations. The Virginia Apex Accelerator, they were also with us on Monday night at the event. They are a trusted resource and Department of Defense funded organization. They provide local training, counseling, and mentoring for aspiring government contractors, as well as matchmaking events. If you want to sell to state, local, or federal government, please contact your local Apex Accelerator. Please visit the links on your screen to review the training calendar, locate free resources, and to schedule an appointment with your Apex Accelerator counselor today. Now we want to thank our paid sponsors, which is what allows the webinar series to happen for free. BidSpeed, they were also at our event on Monday night. They're our premier partner for events. The BidSpeed platform allows users to search public sector opportunities at the federal, state, and local level. Users can also find anything from a compliance matrix to teaming partners incumbent point of contacts, expiring contracts, and proposal templates. Discover, manage, and secure government contracts with BidSpeed. BidSpeed is an official partner of the SBA's ETG and Power to Grow program. Contact BidSpeed today. C3, if you're thinking about contracting with the Department of Defense, you need to prepare for CMMC, the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification. C3's suite of CMMC solutions include C3 Command, C3 Catalyst, and C3 Core. These solutions answer the needs of every defense contractor, whether your CMMC priority is a fast defined path to compliance or you need the flexibility to manage multiple environments. C3 offers solutions. They are your partner with the deep expertise in IT, cybersecurity, and compliance. Contact C3 today. WorkPlan. WorkPlan is an online contract management and accounting tool designed for federal contractors and hosted by Amazon Web Services. Get and stay DCAA compliant, manage expenses, timekeeping, and forecasting. Plus, use the WorkPlan platform to manage your capture process and your CRM. Contractors can integrate their HR and payroll into this one easy-to-use solution. Contact WorkPlan today. Ateria. Ateria specializes in Microsoft Cloud licenses and services for government and contractors. They provide a business advantage for Microsoft Government Cloud licensing, managed IT administration and security, as well as data intelligence services and solutions. Ateria implements secure, compliant, and scalable solutions to enhance operations, reduce risk, and uncover opportunities. Contact Ateria for expert IT assistance. Okay, last but not least, we want to thank our friends at Gov White Papers. Gov White Papers is the central hub for government and contractors to find and post content geared towards solving public sector challenges. With your free membership, you can add relevant white papers, case studies, data sheets, and more, making your content available to a wider government audience. Do you have the expertise but not the content? Gov White Papers can also create materials to meet your specific needs. Join for free today at govwhitepapers.com. Okay, we are here today to cover the DFARS, specifically Part 237, which is service contracting. We are lucky to have Keith Feinbaum with us from Paul Hastings LLP. He's got a nice slide deck here for us today. And Keith, we want to welcome you. Thank you for taking the time to put together the content, and thanks for in advance for your time today sharing your expertise. I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
Thanks, Jennifer. Thank you for inviting me to speak today about the DFARS. As Jennifer said, my name is Keith Feigenbaum. I'm of counsel at Paul Hastings in Washington, D.C. I lead our government contracts team at Paul Hastings and also work in the national security realm, including export and import compliance. I'm happy to be here today to talk about DFARS Part 237, which covers service contracting. This particular section of the DFARS is quite expansive. Service contracting, as you can imagine, is a broad topic. The Department of Defense does billions of dollars in service contracting each year. And this, to me, is both an interesting part of the DFARS and also one that is often overlooked, but I would suggest you'd want to have some familiarity with because everyone does service contracting for the most part, even if they're in manufacturing or in an area that's not necessarily if you're providing an end product. You may still be doing incidental service contracting, and this part of the DFARS can apply to you. It also, when you look at the section, is an interesting mix of both broad policies. The part implements laws. There are a number of National Defense Authorization Acts referenced, but then it also sets forth rules and policies for some very specific areas of service contracting. So to start, I'll just touch generally what we see in DFARS Part 237. And what is a service contract? Well, generally speaking, it's a contract to perform an identifiable task as opposed to furnishing an end item. So think about your standard operation and maintenance, instruction, training, things of that nature. So classic services are all going to be captured by this part of the DFARS when it comes to contracting with the Department of Defense. And one thing that's important to note is that the general policy, and we see this actually in the FAR section and also in the DFARS section for service contracting, the general DoD policy is to use performance-based acquisition methods when acquiring services. So there has to be clearly defined goals when the DoD contracts for services. There's exceptions for this that are set forth both in FAR Part 37 and DFARS Part 237 that you'll want to be aware of. But generally speaking, based on the going all the way back to the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2001, policy in DoD is to use performance-based methods to acquire services. So clearly defined goals in a solicitation are important, and that's what and that's reflected throughout DFARS Part 237. Next slide, please. The DFARS, thanks. DFARS also touches on non-personal service contracts. What are these? These are contracts in which contractor personnel are not subject to supervision and control by the government or by a non-appropriated fund instrument if that's the contracting party. So this is going to be the most common scenario that we see in service contracting, where most of the dollars are going. Non-personal service contracts where the contractor is basically following what's set forth in a performance work statement or a statement of work and is not subject to supervision and control by the government. So this is the classic scenario where the government will have a contracting officer representative that is the government's interface with the contractor, and they will provide guidance on performance. But by and large, the contractor is acting independently and is going to be held to the terms of the contract. So what are the performance standards? What are the objectives, goals? What are the deliverables? Those are the standards that the contractor is going to be held to and will have to achieve on its own without the government providing daily direction, supervision, apart from that guidance that you will get from a contracting officer's representative or a contracting officer. So this is what we're typically going to see. Most of the service types of service contracts referenced in DFARS Part 237 will fall into this category of non-personal service contracts. Next slide, please. That said, the DFARS Part 237 also touches on personal service contracts. These are service contracts that, by their terms, make the contractor personnel appear to be actual government employees. So this is a narrower category of service contracts. And there's a number of these are explicitly referenced in DFARS Part 237, and it often includes things like audit services, the type of services, think that are inherently governmental, where often it's an individual or a consulting firm providing very specific services to the government that traditionally the government would perform. So these are personal service contracts, and they are going to be they're explicitly referenced in Part 104. And the key here is that the government has to actually make a determination and finding that's documented, saying that the government cannot perform the service itself. So it needs to go out and contract, even though the duties, the services being provided are governmental in nature. So they'll have to document that and publish that determination and finding in order to have a personal service contract. One of the interesting things about this part of the DFARS is that there are very specific policies on certain services, a number of which are personal service in nature. These include things like security guard functions, firefighting, provision of military flight simulators. When you have very specific guidance for specific services like this, it's really important if you perform services to be familiar with this part of the DFARS, so that you're complying, because this is, in my view, an unusual level of detail for the DFARS. So like I said at the outset, specific policies, specific prohibitions from Defense Authorization Acts are being implemented here in these very specific sections. For example, in section 0.109 talks about services of quasi-military armed forces. So these are things that can come into play in many different DoD scenarios. So moving on, talking more about the broad policy behind DFARS Part 237. This is set forth in 237.102. Within DoD, there is a preference for commercial services. Most acquisitions, unless the DoD can justify using non-commercial services, which tend to be more expensive, often require research and development, implicate different issues with technical data, intellectual property. So in most scenarios, DoD is required to use commercial services, and that makes sense because that you can get products or get services that are widely available, that have been tried and tested, and don't require the kind of development that increases prices. And then there's a commercial market that drives down prices. So the Part 237 tells us, provides this direction to DoD contracting personnel, that unless an exception applies, they should pursue the commercial market, pursue commercial services first. There's also provisions on public-private competitions, and this deals with the instances where the government wants to go out and contract and not use government personnel, and this has to be justified. So here we see within Part 237 references to a PGI. So for public-private competitions, we go to the PGI, which provides more specific instruction on how to actually go about this. And this implements the Office of Management and Budget Circular A76. So here we see an example where you have a broad policy being implemented through this this part of the DFARS, and it's referencing us, taking us to another policy, OMB Circular A-76, which then you'll have to turn to in the event of if this is implicated. Next slide, please. Additional policies here, and I've actually excerpted this here. I've not listed all parts of this, but just hitting on some of the high notes. We see additional policies intended to ensure that that contracting officers look to the commercial market first for services, which is good for contractors and also good for DoD because it drives down prices, creates competition. So here we see a number of policies that encourage this general policy of using commercial services unless an exception applies. So we see this throughout Part 237. So that's why it's important to kind of dig into this and see if if a service you're looking to provide, if there's going to be an issue, where the government, it can add time to procurements if the government has to jump through some hoops to justify, going contrary to a policy. For example, if they're looking to provide personal service or to solicit a personal service contract. So just additional policies to be aware of. Next slide, please. So now I'm just going to touch on some of the key provisions. Like I said at the outset, this is a pretty expansive part of the DFARS and with some very specific provisions. But I think some of the key provisions are those that that point you to other parts of the DFARS or other DoD guidance for service contracting. And I think that's so starting with Part 237.102-75, this refers us to the Defense Acquisition Guidebook, which if you go to that, you'll see that despite the fact that the DFARS to this day points us to it, that guidebook has been retired and it's been replaced by a number of guidebooks that are designed to align with DoD's current acquisition policies. So this kind of highlights the importance of actually clicking through and ensuring that the DFARS itself is up to date. And then the other thing that this highlights is that here we have a regulation, but especially for service contracting, and especially during times like this when we have a new administration in the White House that's implementing its own policies on service contracting. So a lot of the policy that's going to be important for you is going to be found elsewhere. So that's what this this provision tells us, is that you need to look elsewhere. In this instance, I've given the link to the various guidebooks, which are broken down by functional area. So this is, I think, an important thing to take a look at. If you take nothing else away today, go look at these guidebooks, because your the service you're providing, your functional area may be touched on through these guidebooks, and this will give you a good sense of what are this current administration's acquisition policies and priorities with respect to service contracting. And this shifts constantly as we get new get new administrations and as world events unfold. So the DFARS Part 237 provides us a framework and some rules and policies related to service contracting, but really it's in guidebooks like this and in the policy memorandum that DoD issues on a regular basis, where you can get the latest guidance. Next slide, please. Here's another key provision dealing with the acquisition of computer software and computer software documentation. This is a hot area, kind of going back to what I was just talking about. Software acquisition is a big topic right now in DoD and really government wide. So it's important to just know that this provision exists because it directs you to other policies within the DFARS on the acquisition of commercial computer software and service and related service contracts. This is just an evolving area as DoD seeks to keep up with technological developments. Has a heavy impact on technology related services. So it's just important to know that these provisions exist and that they direct you elsewhere. Next slide, please. Another key provision is 237.104 for personal service contracts, and I touched on this earlier. For DoD to acquire personal services of experts and consultants, so think auditors, advisors, can be attorneys. A DNF, a determination and findings, is required. So the government has to justify why it needs to bring in an expert or a consultant as opposed to relying on its own expertise. Next slide, please. And lastly, the last key provision that I wanted to direct you to is for the acquisition of audit services. So along the lines of the personal service contract rules, it must to bring in outside audit services to contract for audit services, DoD must justify this. The Part 237 also tells us that the government has to use LPTA, or lowest price technically acceptable source selection, to acquire audit services. So here we see Part 237, basically with a pricing policy being implemented, in addition to this requirement to justify why outside auditors are needed when DoD has its own audit arm, for example, in DCAA. DCMA also performs audit functions. So here's the part that we go to, and then this directs us to other parts of the DFARS to implement the part. So next slide, please. So in summary, this is DFARS Part 237 is a really interesting part of the DFARS because it implements an area service contracting that implicates billions of dollars in DoD spending each year. But it's really important to dig down if you are a service contractor or if you're on the government side acquiring services, to dig down into these DFARS Part 237 provisions to see if there are either specific policies or prohibitions related to the services you're providing, or if some of these broader policies, some of the NDAA provisions might impact what you're either supplying or what you're seeking to procure. So thanks for your time today, and it's a pleasure to speak to you all.
Keith, it was great to have you with us. Thanks for a fantastic presentation. If anybody has questions about DFARS Part 237, you've got Keith's contact information here on the screen in front of you. In the event that you are listening to this on our YouTube channel, give us a like, leave a comment. We would love to hear from you. If you are with us live, then just give us about 24 hours and we'll have the recording up shortly. On Friday, you would think that we would be covering DFARS Part 238, but it's actually reserved, nothing to cover. So we will pick up with Part 239, Acquisition of Information Technology, on Friday at noon. Again, you can find all of our webinars over on YouTube and the corresponding PowerPoints over on slideshare.net. Thanks again, Keith. Thanks again, everybody who joined us today, and we'll see you on Friday for Part 239. Thank you.